Crossing over now to Wole Famurewa in Nigeria, who will be discussing recent events in Nigeria's turbulent aviation sector. Are they clipping the wings, Wole?
Yes, indeed. You've probably seen the headlines. British Airways and Virgin Atlantic have been fined $235 million for various breaches in the Nigerian market. And obviously this on the back of what we heard just over a week ago, that British Airways landing slots in Nigeria were going to be reduced because the Nigerian carrier Arik Air were having challenges getting similar slots in the UK. But joining me to talk about the broader aviation sector in Nigeria and, of course, these issues is Chinedu Mofunaya. He's an analyst at financial derivatives company, and he's going to share a few thoughts on this issue. Thanks so much, Chinedu, for joining us on the show today. First of all, let's talk a bit about this whole, should I say, malaise and how it's playing out. Obviously, initially, there was the threat to reduce landing slots for BA. Now we're hearing about fines for BA and Virgin Atlantic. It really brings into the spotlight the whole issue surrounding investing in Nigeria's aviation sector.
I agree with you. I think what we need to put in perspective is where exactly this whole crisis or malaise started from. This is essentially an issue between the authorities in Heathrow and Arik Air and Arik's inability to have or get landing slots. Now, ideally, the aviation industry is well regulated, heavily regulated, and it's run by conventions. You have the Yamoussoukro Convention, the Banjul Accords, and all this. Now, every airline or every player in the industry has to respect these accords. Now, in the past, you had the airlines being owned by the state, and have those airports also owned by the state. However, now these things have changed.
Right.
Now those airports have been concessioned. Most airlines now, BA, it's certainly a private-run airline, is no longer a national carrier in a sense. So a lot has changed, and that has also changed the dynamics in which these agreements come into play. So I think that has been the issue where, in the past, the government, in a sense, owned the airports, the airlines, and everything that has to do with aviation, but that has changed so far. So that has been the background of this whole crisis.
Okay, let's talk a bit about Nigeria. Obviously, there's been some reform in the aviation sector. Yeah. We used to have a spate of air crashes 6-7 years ago. Obviously, we've heard less of that, thankfully. But we know that there's still a lot to do.
Definitely.
And many people keep calling for the concession of the airports. That's probably where we need to start, because that's the business environment where these airlines work anyway.
I agree with you. That is like fish in water. I would agree with you also that our safety records have improved considerably over the last few years. However, there is still a big question of the cost of doing business in Nigeria, especially by domestic airlines. Ideally, on an average, the fuel cost runs about 32% of the whole aviation cost, but in Nigeria that goes 11% higher. That's about 42%, which is huge. And you also have taxes as well as multiple destinations. But most critically is the issue of the airport infrastructure. How reliable are the infrastructure? We all know what the Murtala Mohammed Airport looks like, and if you go across every airport there in states that we can certainly do better and improve upon. So I agree with you that the first point is that the government has to hands off this industry and allow private hands to come in, have these airlines concessioned, and that will bring a new life into the industry and definitely would receive massive growth in the industry. Bearing in mind that this is an industry that supports 33 million jobs across the globe. This is also an industry that generates $3.5 trillion in assets. Now, the question we would ask is how much of that is being generated in Nigeria? The reason why that hasn't happened is because of the bottlenecks. And these bottlenecks, as soon as these bottlenecks are removed, the airports are concessions, private investment comes in, we have developed, the infrastructure develops, definitely this will certainly drive investment in the aviation industry.
While we're trying to sort out the infrastructure and remove the bottlenecks like you mentioned, what options are left for the airline operators? Because like you mentioned, many of them are struggling. Arik Air obviously is crying. They're looking at the opportunity that the Lagos-London route offers. Yes. It's perhaps the most lucrative anywhere in the world. But we're not seeing enough investment in the local airlines. What, in terms of business model changes, what are your suggestions on how Nigerian airlines should play this?
Well, what I would I believe the Nigerian airlines should start looking at the whole value chain, not just looking at operating as airlines. The aviation industry had a huge, long value chain coming from hospitality to car rentals to the food to maintenance to infrastructure. Now, if they begin to try and tap into other areas of this value chain, that will definitely increase their income streams, and not solely depend on tickets and flights. So while they are expecting or preparing for the government to make the environment more conducive, they should begin to look at where else on this value chain can I play and make income from.